everyone, it's Maddie.
And V, and welcome to the first day of our reading rush.
This is everything we managed to get done on day one.
So it's nearly 9 o'clock on the first day of the stay home reading rush, and I am 60 pages into my first book, The Last Boy and Girl in the World by Siobhan Vivian. I picked this one first because I have the highest expectations for it. V gave it 5 stars when she read it, I think, last year. And so I've decided, unlike all the other books she's recommended to me, I'm going to read it within 12 months of her reading it. It's 400 pages, I'm 60 pages through, but that's pretty much done the setup. We've got to the inciting incident of the water becoming more of a threat to Keeley's town. So far, I can completely understand why B gave this 5 stars, and it's already heading that way for me. Something that's really captured my attention in this is the writing style. It's very detail-oriented, and there's a lot of figurative language that feels so grounded, and it's really making me pay attention. It's the kind of book that I want to read slowly to make sure I'm just absorbing everything. Also, I think that Siobhan Vivian's characterization is amazing. She's chosen exactly the right details to give you about the characters, so that you only need to read a couple of sentences about them to fully understand who they are. I really love how, even though, like, narrative time, we've only been with the characters for 2 days, she's really well placing little anecdotes and backstories to Keeley's interactions with them. So it already feels like I know these people, and that'll make it easy for me to be invested in what they're losing in their town being flooded. I think the romance is already making me feel a little bit giddy. Keeley has been in love with this boy called Jesse for 5 years, and it's been an unrequited crush that she hasn't taken that seriously. But at the beginning of the book, it's looking like it could turn into something real when they're sending lots of flirty text messages and joking about at school, and it culminates in Jessie asking her to the spring formal. But the weather is a huge obstacle and could potentially ruin that moment, and the last scene I read was just them having like a Taylor Swift Fearless moment, which was very adorable. Now I've got to the part where the weather warnings are getting a little bit more severe. I'm very interested to see how this will develop for them. Also, I forgot to mention how much I really love Keeley's character. Her personality is just so amazing. I wouldn't say that she's the wild friend, and she's not the insecure friend. She's kind of somewhere in the middle. She's definitely trying to be funny and maybe slightly immature compared to her peers, but that's something that I really relate to. So I think my endearment to her character is just another reason why this is going to get a high star rating. Pages after my last update, and Jesse's already disappointed me in how he is acting with Keeley. And now the other guy that is introduced, his name is Levi, and he is a smart, not really caring about social activities guy, has come to her in a moment of need. She says, his eyes were plain brown like mine, or so I thought. It wouldn't be until a few weeks later that I'd noticed the yellow flecks. And I'm like, ooh! He's another love interest. I always thought that the last boy and girl would be Keeley and Jesse, because that's how it seemed to be set up at the beginning with her huge crush. But what if the boy is actually Levi? Okay, now I'm way more invested to keep reading.
I am starting off my stay-at-home readathon with Under a Dancing Star by Laura Wood. This is a retelling of Much Ado About Nothing. In this version, Beatrice is a 17-year-old girl living in 1930s England, but her mother is a little bit at her wit's end with her. She's been faithfully trying to set her up so that the family name can continue, but after another disaster, she ships her off to Italy to spend some time with her uncle and cousin. The funny thing is, Maddie and I very recently rewatched Nothing Much to Do, which is our favourite literary web series, and that's an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing. It's almost a shame to be reading this so soon after that, because it's not going to get better than that for me. Like, a contemporary modern day Much Ado About Nothing set across video blogs is perfect. But hopefully the Italian setting will make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm at part 2 now. I'm like 60 pages through after not that long of reading, so I think I'm going to be able to get through it relatively quickly. It's 400 pages though, so I didn't go easy on myself with the first book, did I? I'm also going to be using this book to read in one room, read the entire thing in one room. May as well just get that one out of the way straight away. It's 9:15 now, and the light is quite nice in my room, so I think I'll be happy to stay in here for a while.
So I'm now nearly 200 pages through, and Jessie is back on the table as an option. It seemed like the misunderstanding at prom has been smoothed over, because Keeley saw him interacting with Victoria, who's like an ex-girlfriend or an on-off girlfriend, and that kind of ruined her chances with him. But now they've been interacting again, and it seems like they're very much on the same wavelength with how they're reacting to this disaster. Keeley and Jessie have the attitude of trying to make people happy, to elevate the moods of everybody. It seems like my previous happiness at Levi being the last boy in the world has slipped out my fingers, but I also think that
that Jesse is just going to be one of those guys that once it stops being fun won't actually care about Keely. I still have hope. I mean, Levi did come round to see if Keely was okay, but he's definitely got a more serious manner, and I'm hoping it's an opposites attract scenario. Also, things have definitely escalated with the flooding. So Elise lost her house in the flooding, and now it seems like she's going to have to move away and they won't have access to her anymore, and that breaking up of the friendship prematurely is getting them all a bit down. And also Keely's dad, who is kind of a pariah in the town because he had this huge accident and then became a bit of a shut-in. He has been focusing for the last couple of months on news stories, and now he's been able to piece it together that there might be more going on that the government know about that they're not telling people related to this flooding that meant it could have been stopped. So he's suddenly become a hometown hero. So the relationship between Keely and Levi, and I'm calling it a relationship because I hope that's what it develops into, is even more difficult because Levi is the son of the sheriff, and now Keely is the daughter of this guy completely ignoring government officials. It's been half an hour. I'm now at page 130, and I keep putting it down. Like, I read about 20 pages and then I'm like, yeah, and then I just put it to a side and pick up my phone again and just go on Twitter or YouTube. So that's not good. I can't tell if it's the book that's making me a little bit distracted or if it's just the act of reading, because I haven't been reading in a long time, physical books anyway. I've read a lot of fan fiction, let's not go into that, but I guess because that's on my phone, I'm just more like engaged in it. Like, I think I quite enjoy reading on my phone, but maybe it's only fan fiction. If I had to change the context and read like a young adult book on my phone, I'd probably be like, no. I would like to keep going with this. I think I'm going to put a timer on my phone for maybe 15 minutes, see how much I can read in that time, chuck my phone on the other side of the room so I can't just randomly pick it up, and then we'll see where we are. The kind of sad thing about reading this is on the back is a very blurred, faded sticker from Blackwell's, which is where we got this, and that just makes me think of the time where Maddie and I spontaneously went to Oxford for a weekend, and it was really lovely, and now we can't go anywhere else. So hopefully we can take more trips to visit bookshops around the country once all of this is over. So 15 minutes on the clock. Let's see how much I can read. I'm editing these clips together now, and I realise I never gave closure of how much I managed to read in that 15 minutes. And I think it was about 50 pages, which is crazy wild. And as I said, I know the story, like I knew the character dynamics, so it's not hard to read quickly. Although I admit that I was skimming a few descriptions, but there you go. I'm also just editing this video, and as I did, Koo decided to post his bang turn of the day. Look at him in glasses! So we got this Selka and this one. Bantan glasses is truly a gift. Do it for poor vision armies, thank you. Boop. A package just arrived! Something that we ordered from Coco Dive with all of our BT21 baby figures. It was meant to be a birthday present, but after all of this lockdown nonsense, I've been so desperate to open something, because normally we have so many things in the post. We got a lot trapped in the post right now. It's kind of tragic, like all of our Itsy photo cards, the Wannabe album set. We've stopped ourselves buying NCT's new album because we know, like, it was gonna get here. Yeah, exactly. The pastel boxes are gonna look so cute. So
did you want to unbox one?
It's like a double display. You can like have the
figure
boxes and then the figures. So yeah, Shuki in a little mint box. I love him.
Perfectly matches your room.
Oh my goodness, it's actually tiny.
Teeny tiny.
He's like a little polymer clay.
Oh. He is small.
That is small. Oh, but okay, yeah, because Shuki's smaller, Tata's a bit bigger, but that makes sense.
He is just a biscuit after all.
He is just a biscuit. It's horrible. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrendous. Open the rest. He tumbled out!
Lovely. The whole gang.
Little baby.
So we're just going to take a short break from reading to watch the new BT21 Universe 3 episode.
So I just finished my first book of the day at 400 pages so far for the readathon. It ended up being a prequel to Much Ado About Nothing as opposed to a retelling. So it explores the shared past that Bea and Ben reference in the original play. The one thing I would say is it's quite one note, like there's really no tension or angst even in their romance, apart from a few conversations that are interrupted, but it doesn't really lead to any sort of miscommunication or confusion between the two of them, and the only thing that's like stopping them really from being a couple the whole way through is their insistence that their romance is just a social experiment. Later on in the book it tries to do something that like highlights the fact that the war is looming over them, but it doesn't go into too much detail of that, and I think that really would have added more general texture to the background and the story and the life of this book, but it really didn't do much with it. So it was kind of just like a throwaway thing of like, oh yeah, I've set this in the 30s, so I can't really avoid talking about escalating tensions in Europe. It's a very swooning romance, very simplistic in its construction. So if you like that kind of thing where you just want like guaranteed nice gooey feelings, then this is definitely the book for you. The Italian setting was nice. It was summery and hot in feel, luxurious as this gorgeous cover. But I will probably only give it 3 stars just because it doesn't exactly match up with my preferences for characters, for plot, for romance. So now I'm going to go and pick my second book.
I feel like it's also important to mention, and I forgot to put it in my original thoughts, is that this book does something in like the last 50 pages when they're at a party where it makes known that one of the side characters, Klaus, is bisexual, and it does this through the secondary characters talking about him. It was almost like it was throwing it in just to have that like queer character checkmark. Obviously, just have queer characters be there, that's important. They don't have to be the main characters of the story, but to just like throw it in the last 50 pages just felt, if anyone else felt that either with this book or with other books that they may have read, but it's like if you're just going to add it in just so that you can say that you have a queer character, I don't know, it just felt a little unsavory to me.
For a book called The Last Boy and Girl in the World, I was expecting this to be so much more focused on romance, but it's surprisingly friendship-oriented, which is very delightful for me. So we have Keely and Morgan, who are childhood best friends, and Morgan's friend Elise, who makes up the third point of their triangle. Elise, as I mentioned earlier, is the girl that has to leave town, and so the last couple of chapters I've read have been Elise's final days, and the party, and the fallout, as Keely isn't exactly allowing Elise to mourn leaving as much as she wants to. I really like the nuances within the friendship and how it's showing how the girls act differently in pairs and how you're closer to some people than others. I love knowing the history of someone's friendship, particularly the sticker book anecdote that Morgan and Keely shared. We've also had a few more scenes with Levi as Keely has been working with him to empty out the houses of the people that have left. The scenes are few and far between and they're quite short, and there's definitely a lot of animosity still between Levi and Keely based on an interaction that they had a few years ago at school. So unfortunately something romantic is yet to develop between them, and maybe I'm pinning too many of my hopes on that happening because Jessie hasn't done anything else to annoy Keely yet or prove him to be not a good love interest. Like, they're still very much well suited to each other. So this is like the first time where I'm rooting for someone in a potential love triangle that doesn't have as much chance as the main guy. It's been a very interesting experience, and I've never had that in a book before. Hey, what are you reading now?
The second book I've chosen is Wild Blue Wonder by Carlie Sorosiak, and I was already 65 pages in, and I am now at 112. I really like it. I thought you didn't like this one.
No, I didn't. I think maybe I read it too quickly or like in between other things, so maybe I didn't give it the attention.
Yeah, I remember you not liking it, so I was really trepidatious to start reading it, but I actually really do like it.
That's good.
It's told across 2 sort of timelines / perspectives. Well, it's all from one girl, but the sort of past narrative is addressed to a you. To Dylan, which is the boy that the 3 siblings fall in love with. At first, when I was like reading it, I was like, oh no, because I hate second person as a device. Like, hate second person. And I was like, God, how am I going to get through half of this book if it's like this? But then at like page 90 or something, it explains the reason why it's written that way. And like, it just, like, all the breath just rushed out of me, and I was like, oh God, like, and it's so intense, and it's like actually the perfect reasoning, the only reasoning that should ever be for using second person. Actually, it's so like perfectly in tune to details.
That's exactly what I like about this book.
And the cast of characters is really like cool too,
because it's quite a short book, isn't it?
Yeah, it's only 280 pages.
Yeah.
But I'm just like really enjoying being in the world. It's sentimental, it's about grief, family dynamics and stuff as well. Like, it's quite just introspective, like the characters in her feelings a lot, and I love books like that.
So 100 pages from the end, and Keely and Levi have finally had a moment where he told her about his tragic backstory, the fact that his mum died and how that happened, and that's exactly the moment they need to get closer so that they can hopefully fall in love. Hope I don't sound too delusional saying that, but that quiet moment between them meant a lot in the chronology of the book, because a couple of scenes before, Jesse had the opportunity to talk to Keely about his family dynamic, but instead decided to run away from it, and Keely still said to herself that they were getting closer purely from the fact that she got to witness them interacting. But Levi was very willing to open up to her, even though they're not that close friends, and so maybe just highlighting the fact that he's a better match. My immediate thoughts after finishing The Last Boy and Girl in the World is that I equally hated it as much as I loved it. I cannot believe how the story went. Like, in my head I knew that this was a book about slowly losing everything, but as I was reading it, it so easily convinced me that things would be okay and everything was just going really well for the friendships, for the relationships. Things were just blooming. And then Keely just loses grip on everything so quickly that it's just downhill very, very sharp. There are 2 breakup scenes in a row, and each one was a punch in the gut. They were good in different ways and emotional in different ways as well. Somehow it did manage to have different notes to it, regardless of the fact that the scenes could have come across quite similar. I felt actually in pain, genuinely, as if I was losing what Keely was losing, and I haven't felt that emotionally connected to a book in a while. Probably why I cried over it. There's this huge time jump of 5 months at the ending, so you get to see a little bit of what Keely's life outside of Aberdeen is like. To be fair, it's not actually that hopeful, and she's managed to repair her relationship with somebody, but not the other person, and arguably the other person was more important. I really liked the final chapter. I think it did give some resolve that was necessary in order to make this feel a little bit happy, to leave you with a smile on the face, but I was not expecting my pervading emotion at the end of this reading experience to be sadness. B did not prepare me for that one. But B did say something after I told her what the ending was to remind her that I really connect with, and I will now share as if it was my own words. I can take credit for them. That books with uncertain endings are almost hopeful in, like, at the age we are now, when not everything is always tied up with a bow and that you've got so many years of uncertainty left in your life. And I appreciated that in the same way that I appreciate books that are about breakups. I will also give it 5 stars though, because one of my caveats for having a 5-star rating is that it withdraws some emotion from me, and I did have a cry. So 5 stars for this one. Would definitely recommend. But know that you will be in your feelings by the end of it. Me and B came outside for a little walk to stretch our legs after reading all day, and I've decided that I'm probably not going to pick up a new book today, just because I was so in my feelings on the last one that I need time to digest it.
Yeah, and I've still got like, I think under 100 pages now of my book, but I'm getting very in my feelings reading that one, so
maybe I'll try again in the evening, but for now we will go home and play Animal Crossing. I read all 420 pages of The Last Boy and Girl in the World, completing the challenge to read a book with a house on the cover.
And I also read 130 pages of Wild Blue Wonder by Carlie Sorosiak.
So stay tuned for our day 2 vlog.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.